Shalom, everyone. Welcome to Coffee and Connection, week 151. I will apologize. I sound pretty congested. I know, like I've been sick since last week. When I told you my throat was a little bit scratchy, I ended up pretty having this like cold just like hit me very, very hard. I pushed myself for Monday and Tuesday as we had Shema Brachot and things like that, and then Wednesday, I was in bed, and Thursday was in bed, and Friday and Shabbos, thank God I felt well enough to make Shabbos, but I've just been like tired, congested. I have cold written all over my face. Different if you're listening on video, but I promise feel way better than I sound and maybe even look, but I didn't want to, miss out on being together today. So thank God. So someone saying, please take good care of yourself. I almost did Coffee and Connection today on the topic of taking care of ourselves when we're sick. Um, that is really something that I made myself do. Even the days that I chose not to stay in bed. It was really a choice. It was, there was what I wanted to be a part of, and I hope I didn't make other people sick. I just like, was like, okay, we got to push forward. And I made sure to take care of myself as best as I could and kept checking in with myself. What do I need? Getting sleep those days, even. Um, and then I really did take those days to take care of myself. Even my husband did my coaching call for me on Wednesday, which I was very, very appreciative of. And I know the women enjoyed getting a man's perspective on their questions that they wanted to ask. What is he thinking? So that was really great. Like I got to be supported on Wednesday and really like just taking care of ourselves is so important. It really is. And I've really been trying to ease back into everything. I've just been feeling tired and really giving myself that space, right? Even like making sure that I am taking care of myself is so important because if we don't take care of ourselves, what like there's so many issues, right? First of all, we're not taking care of ourselves and we need to. We have a chiyuv, we have a mitzvah, we have this body that we have to take care of. It's just as important, if not, like we have to take care of our bodies and know that that's just as important as like as we want to take care of anyone in our family who's sick. We have to take care of our own bodies too, and we get to receive, we get to allow other people to help us out, to be understanding. I'll be honest, it was like, oh, can I last minute tell my clients I'm not coming to the coaching call? And I allowed myself to receive their understanding. And I allowed my husband to support me, and I allowed him to take care of me when I was sick, and I allowed myself to stay in bed. And we have to just allow ourselves to not be invincible, right? It's allowing ourselves to not always have it together. It can be really, really hard to give ourselves permission to not have it all together, to give ourselves permission to need help, to give ourselves permission to say, I can't do this today, to give ourselves to be able to receive from other people and not feel like we have to do it all. So important, especially, often in the summer, we're taking care of, there's more care that we're doing for others. We don't necessarily get the break during the day that we may get otherwise. Um, Unless all your kids are in camp, it's like you have, there's more family around, grandkids for sure. There's just more expected. And it's so important to give ourselves the permission to take care of ourselves as well. Whether that's when we feel fine, but we need time to ourselves throughout the day, that's totally fine. I was talking to somebody recently who was saying how, when her grandkids come over like that, it's so difficult to like give herself the permission to like just leave everybody and go take time for yourself. And I'm saying, like, it's so important every day to give ourselves that permission to say, I need to take time for myself. And we don't have to answer for everyone. Um, yes, and not to feel guilty about it because what good are we if we end up exhausted, resentful, waiting for everyone to leave, or not wanting them to come next time, or just waiting for the summer to end, or just like not looking forward to time together as a family. this is a whole topic on its own. So I want to also jump to the topic that I was looking through some questions that I had put aside for myself as like good coffee and connection topics. And this one that I brought up in the email, I think is one that I hear in so many different variations of like, I asked my husband to do this. I told him how important it was for me for him to do something. And he doesn't do it. He says he'll do it and he doesn't. Whether that's, I want him to ask me about my day. I want him to look up when I come into the room. I want him to put down his phone at dinner. I want him to call me during the day. I want him to tell me when he goes to sleep at night. I want him to say good morning to me in the morning. There's all these like desires that we have from our husbands, and we can feel very frustrated if we've asked him and told him and expressed the desire so many times and it's just not happening. And it's very easy what I hear so often, and I've heard it in myself as well. It's so easy for us to think, I guess you just don't care. Or if you really loved me, you would do it. Or, it must be that like you don't care about what I say, or I can't trust you because you told me you were going to do it and then you still didn't. And it's very challenging. And I want to start out, the first thing I want to say about this is that, and you're welcome to put your own example of this in the chat. Like, what is it that you're like, I keep asking him to do? Or maybe it's wash the dishes, or um, ask me how I'm feeling after I do something difficult, or ask me how my appointment was, or ask me about whatever it is. It's usually ask me or help me with something or check in with me. There's something that we want from them. And so the first thing to note is that with everything that I'm going to say, that desire that you have is important. It's something that's important to. It's something like validate for yourself that that is something that gives you some type of like sipuk, right? Some type of feeling love, some type of feeling respected, some type of care that you want. I guess that's how it ties into what we were talking about before. Like it's part of you feeling valued or loved. Like check in with yourself about that. That's important. Like give yourself the validation that this is something that matters to you. This is something that really and really ask yourself, because this is going to become important later. Why is this important to me? Why do I want this? Number one, to value it, because nothing that I say do I want it to then make you feel like what you want doesn't matter. What you want matters. Our desires matter. Whether they get fulfilled or not doesn't negate that our desires matter, and we can have empathy and validity and understanding and respect for ourselves and know, yes, when my husband asks me how my day was, I feel validated. I feel like I matter. I feel important. I feel loved, whatever that is. Note that for yourself. Okay. So, someone saying, how do you implement giving yourself permission? It's such a good question. Is that you like here, giving the example. I don't give myself permission. I still feel horrible asking for anything. So giving yourself permission is basically saying like this, whatever it is. Let's say you need help. I need help. And it's okay that I need help. You validate yourself. Yes, I need help. Or yes, I want to be checked in on. Yes, I can't do this myself. And you giving it permission means that no matter what how other people respond to it, you know that it's true and you know that it's valid. Okay? You know that it's valid, whatever that is, whatever it is that you are wanting from your husband or you would just wish that he would do, to know that that is valid. So when I say give yourself permission, it means you notice what you want, and you can even say to yourself, and that's okay. It's okay that I want that. It's valid that I want that. And asking the question, and why do I want that, also helps you give it permission. I want that because it helps me feel loved. I want it because it feels good. And note how it makes you feel. What you want to be careful about doing is not getting into, well, that's what a good person does. That's what a loving husband would do. That's what it means to be a good husband. That's getting into judgment, and your husband could argue that with you. And the truth is, it's probably depends on what like your picture and expectation of what a good healthy marriage man woman is. So let's not go into there. Stay focused on what you want because there's no arguing feelings and desires. They're matters of the heart. They're not logical. They're not meant to be logical. They're emotional. So there's no right or wrong. Emotions are not about right or wrong. They're about an experience. It's an emotion and it's valid as an emotion, right? It's only when we get into intellectual, like trying to make it logical that we can end up fighting about whether or not it's valid or not. Okay? So start with what you want and why you want it. Give yourself the permission to want that. Give it validity. Note that, yes, I want it. Now, look, I could want something I could say, I want my husband to give me 12 long stem roses every single day, right? I can want that. Now, whether or not it's a valid, like there's no such thing as a valid desire. An expectation is different than a desire. A valid expectation, it may not be such a great expectation to have, right? To like, okay, why would I expect, like, he's likely to not going to give me 12 long stem roses every day. Where would he even get them? Where would I put them? That could, but if I want it, I can want it and acknowledge, like, yeah, I want it. Why? Because I love roses and I really want to feel appreciated. And that's how I would feel appreciated. So, this is important. So, number one, you're giving yourself validity. You feel your feelings, you recognize your desires, you notice them. They're not right or wrong, bad or good or anything. They're your desires, they're your feelings, they're your emotions. And then it's especially important to notice, like, why do I want them? How will I feel if I have that? Note that, like what I said in my example there, and like even the outlandish example is like, I want to be appreciated. I want to feel appreciated because I could be appreciated in a million different ways. But I'm noting that really what I want, what the roses would make me feel is appreciated. So note what it is that you want to feel. That's very, very important. Okay. So and here's also, like, notice for whatever it is that you want him to do, note how will I feel if he does that? This is very important. This is probably the most important piece of this exercise is to really get clear on how you will feel if he does that. Why you want that so bad, okay? Cuz then we're going to go in two ways with that. The first is to acknowledge that there are ways to communicate what it is that you want, right? If you say, "Why don't you do this? Why don't you ask me about my day? You never do this. You always ignore me. You just lie to me and tell me you're going to do it. I can't trust you. You don't care about me." If you're focusing on what he's not doing, or if you're telling him what to do or being judgmental about how he does it, that's likely going to cause a defensiveness, a shutting down, even though your feeling and your desire is valid. There are ways to communicate it that are more likely to have him be open to it. Like telling him what you would love and how it would make you feel. And as much as you can, communicating it in a way of, like, from your perspective rather than saying, if only, like, why can't you ask me about my day, or you should ask me about my day, to say something like, I love being asked about my day. I love being asked about my day. That's keeping it from your experience rather than telling him what he should or shouldn't do. You also want to especially focus on the future rather than the past because he can't change the past. So you never ask me about my day. There's nothing he can say about that. I would love to be asked about my day is focusing on the future, which is possible for him to have control over, right? And it will feel so I would feel so loved. I makes me feel I then feel appreciated. Like sharing that with him is much more inspiring. That's one piece. Another piece of it is recognizing that you may have the experience, many women share with me that their husbands say, "Yeah, okay, I'll do it," or "I'll try," and then they don't. And the reason isn't because they don't care. Okay. Usually the reason is it's not in their habit. They're not used to it. They're used to doing things a different way. So it's not that they don't care, it's that they honestly forget because they're not used to it. Just like anytime we try to put a new habit into play, we could forget no matter how much we want to do it because we're not used to it. It's a real thing. So what you can do is look to see, how can I shift this pattern in a way that can be playful and inspiring? And this brings us to the third piece that I wanted to share, is to really focus on, what is it that I want to create? What is it that I want to feel? Because let's put it this way. If, let's say, you really want your husband to ask you, how was your day? Or you want your husband to look up and acknowledge you when you walk in the room. And the reason you want that is because you want to feel connected to him. You want to feel like you matter to him. You want to feel close to him. You want connection and relationship. And then when he doesn't do that, you get upset and you're angry and you're resentful and you feel hurt. And you may either don't say anything and are resentful about it, or you say something but in a negative, like, see, you never do it, or why aren't you doing it? And it's negative, or it starts a fight. You're creating the opposite. You could say he's creating. What's being created is the opposite of what you want. You're saying you want connection, but it's actually creating disconnection. So what I invite you to focus in on is what you want to create. If you walk in at the end of the day and you're sitting at dinner together and he's not saying, how was your day? And you're like, oh, I want him to ask me. And you remember, wait, why do I want him to ask me? Because I want connection. So, how can I interrupt this pattern of him not asking me because he's not used to it in a way that actually creates connection? Right? That's what I really invite you to focus on. What is it that you want to create? How could you create it? So, for example, you might look at your husband and be like in a playful way, not judgmental or mean, but a playful, might be like, oh, let me tell you about my day. Want to hear about it? Or would you like to hear about my day? Like, kind of invite it. And he might be like, oh, yeah, how was your day? Right. And create the connection that you want to create. By the way, you could also just start telling him about your day. That's a men are from Mars, women are from Venus, of like, men expect that if you have something to say, you're going to share it. Women like to be asked, right? So one of the best ways, if you're like waiting for your husband to ask you about your day, is don't wait for him to ask and just be like, can I share with you about my day? But again, if you really, it means a lot to be asked and he has even agreed to, you could playfully shift the dynamic by being like, want to hear about my day? Should I share with you about my day? Would you like me to share about my day? Or like in some playful way like that. So you're actually creating what it is that you desire instead of creating the opposite of what you want. Does that make sense? If what you want, if you really want your husband to wash the dishes at the end of the day, and he's agreed to, but he just never does. And the reason you want him to is because you want to feel like a partnership. Then the more you just don't say anything and get upset and feel resentful, you're going to feel less of a partnership, right? And if you just do it resentfully, you're going to feel even more like you're doing it all by yourself. So what if in that moment, when you notice the dishes and he's sitting there doing his own thing, if you would say to him, wait, are you planning to do the dishes today or will you do the dishes tonight? Like playfully, lovingly, knowing that it's not that he doesn't want to, it's that it's not in his like, and you could say it should be, but this is just the reality. It's not in his habit, right? This is a piece of acceptance. It's not in his habit to finish dinner and go do the dishes. So you could say, just to like checking in, reminder, are you planning to do the dishes? Will you do the dishes? Like with that, like let's create like with you being in a mindset of partnership rather than creating more resentment and disconnection. Does that resonate? So that's like really staying focused. As soon as you acknowledge what it is that you want to create, what it is that you want to feel, you can both validate yourself. Okay, so important. You can communicate it more lovingly and more vulnerably, which is more open to being heard. And you can also look to see, how can I interrupt this pattern of it not being done in a way that actually creates the feeling that I'm looking to feel, create the experience that I want to create. So it all starts, as it always does, by checking in with ourselves and knowing what is it that I really want? Why do I want that? How will it make me feel? How will what is it that I'm looking to experience is very, very powerful. And if he really doesn't want to wash the dishes, that's the question. What about if he really doesn't like to wash the dishes? Well, the question is, did he agree to it? Did he say, yeah, yeah, I'll wash the dishes? He may say that that's different if he really doesn't like to wash them, but he said, I'll do it. Yeah, you're right. I that's a good thing for me to do, or I hear it's important to you, I'll do it. Then it's important to give especially the appreciation that he's and receive the fact that he does it even if he doesn't like to, especially because he doesn't like to. There's this whole like debate out in the world about, do people get more or less credit for doing something that they don't want to do? And in a lot of like in the like a romantic kind of sense, people often think like we should get more credit for the things that we want to do. And if someone doesn't really want to do it and they do it anyways, it feels like icky. Like people don't like it. They don't feel like you should be appreciative. Like if you really loved me, you would do it because you want to, not because you have to. But thank God we have God, and Hashem has taught us in halacha that actually we get more credit for the things that we don't want to do. Because if we have to do it and we don't really want to do it, but we do it because we have to, we do it because we're, it's not, what does it even mean we have to? We do it because we want to choose relationship and we understand it's important for the relationship. So we do it not because we want to, but not because we have a desire to do it, but we do it because it's important to the other person, it's important to the relationship, then we get more credit for that. So if your husband doesn't want to do the dishes, but he says, I'll do it because you want me to, then it's so important to give even more appreciation and not just give the appreciation, receive the love that's being given, receive the validation that's being given. And if he really says, I don't want to do the dishes, then you could, it's very important in a partnership to also give him the space to say what he would like to do. He says, no, I don't want to do dishes. Okay. Is there anything else that you would be able to do at the end of the day so that I feel like we're working together? Is there anything else that you would be willing to take off my plate? Um, you know, like express to him what it is that you really want so that he can then let you know what he is willing to do. Anytime we force someone to take on a job, or we force someone to do something that's not, they're not even willing to take on, they're they might say yes because they feel they don't want to upset you, but it's not likely going to create connection, which is usually what we're ultimately looking for, right? Um, and so it's important to also give space to see what is it that he wants to do. I see here my husband says I should ask for help more, and I did, but he continues to sit on the couch, very angry, because he considers rule. So you could, if he's saying you can ask for more help, then you want to look at how are you asking for help, right? That's a whole different topic of like how to ask for help. How are we asking for help? You could even say something like, "Wait, but you are suggesting that I do ask for help. So is there a way that I could ask it differently, or is there a way I'm saying it?" There's a whole that's a whole topic of itself, how to ask for help and how we may be asking for help in a way that's like not so inspiring for the other person to get up and do it. But the fact that he's saying, I want you to ask for help, there may be something in the way it's being asked that could make a difference, or the way that it's being received, or giving him more space to do it in his way. It's an important topic in and of itself. You could definitely check past Coffee and Connections, and maybe we'll do another one on it because it's one that often comes up a lot. Um, okay. I'm seeing some other comments. Um, I'm gonna have to read through them when we after I sign off. Um, 1 second. Okay. And it looks some of these, you know, sometimes there's situations where like we say there's something that we want and our husband's just like, "No, I don't want to do that." That's where we could get curious, like what is it that stops them from wanting that? What is it that maybe they're feeling pressured into, or maybe we have different views and expectations about relationships. That's again also a different topic, which I'm happy to address at a different time. What I wanted to focus on here is why that frustration that we sometimes feel when our husbands say they're going to do something and then they don't. So it's like we have their agreement, but then it doesn't seem to lead to follow through. And that's when, I mean, even like this exercise of tuning into why you want it will make a difference even from the beginning, from tuning in. Again, if we're asking our husbands for something and they're like saying, "No, I don't want that," we could get curious, how are we asking it? So going back to the second step that I described, once we're clear on what we want and why, to look at how we're saying it. Are we focused on him or are we focused on what we want? Are we focused on the past or are we focusing on the future? Are we focused on judgment of what they don't do and who they are or anything like that? Or are we focused on what we want and being vulnerable and expressing that? So I hope all of this was helpful. Again, any other topics that are kind of stemming off from this that you'd like to hear more about, I'm definitely going to look through the chat to give me an idea of what you'd more like talked about. Of course, this is where I get to answer your questions. So you're welcome to send me other questions that you'd like answered, and I will do my best to cover them on future episodes of Coffee and Connection. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining me. I look forward to seeing you next week, please God. And until then, may we all be blessed to live, love, and be loved with all our hearts. Goodbye for now.